gonna write an intro, like here's the accomplishments, the things that you do. But I noticed in your Instagram you have entrepreneur as your first, like as that is in your handle, right? Your FDF race shop, but it's Josiah Fallaise. That's Fallaise, correct?
Correct. Yep, you got
Yeah.
it.
Josiah Fallaise entrepreneur, and I'm curious. Like, obviously, you take pride in that. So, could you explain more why that is the thing you want to highlight for people?
Yeah, it might be simpler than what you are seeking, but then I can dive into it. So the reason for that is I had basically an AI analysis of my social media pages, and it outputted what, like, obviously we inputted some prompts, and it was, what are you seeking? What are you trying to drive through? What pages? So the business page
Mhm.
is purely customer based, what they're seeking, and you try to deliver exactly what the
Yeah.
customer is looking for on that side. On my side, it's inspiration, because I gave it basically four prompts that I wanted to engage with. What's scalable in
Mhm.
today's world? And if I limit my personal being to just uh, owner of FTF Race Shop, and then anybody that's going to be on this page, all they're going to be expecting is just FTF Race Shop or
Mhm.
something related to that. But that's not how I want to build my personal self. That's not
Okay.
scalable. So I've started three companies, and being an entrepreneur, or starting from the beginning, I just felt that that was a relatable title, especially today, because people really are seeking on how to escape the matrix. They want to know how they can work their job, but then seek out other means of income. And I think that uh, on a personal level, for everyone is capable of it. I know a lot of people. The world wouldn't work if everyone did it, but I think everyone's capable of it, and that's kind
Yeah.
of what I want to portray. And the scalability of it's just significantly greater than limiting myself. So that's really the reason, was how do you want to be portrayed, and try that. So I'm trying it.
Okay.
And if it doesn't work out after a year and we do an analysis,
Mhm.
I'll change it. But that's totally, I'm free to do that. So that's what we're trying. That's actually a recent change,
Interesting.
like a couple months ago.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's interesting, because it makes me like I've been looking at the people in this space because, right, I've been in particularly OE automotive side of things for over 10 years now, doing just the 9 to 5 stuff, and it's nice. But the lack of freedom, right, the sort of the limitedness of working a standard 9 to 5 job grew tiring for me. And so that's why I started the channel. That's why I started the podcast. Why I started the account. Started making the videos because I want to, at least in the time in the, let's say, short term, make some name, right, and then figure out where I want to go from there.
Hmm.
And so I've been looking at like a bunch of different people in the space, and obviously you came up. Uh, I think particularly around, I started seeing your stuff around the time you were doing the 3D printed alignment tools. And then on the other side of it, right, Alex Martinez, obviously, right, with Martini Works, Meta Martini, right, he's got his whole ecosystem. And it was interesting. You kind of mentioned the difference between FDF Race Shop and then Josiah Fallaise. Because I think Alex, in his way, has made himself such a central figure of Martini Works, that I've been watching the transition over time, especially with their podcast and stuff, that now he's kind of trying to hand that off to other people. They're trying to do other things. He's trying to scale that business while still scaling a marketing business. But I think at the end of the day, it's still Alex Martinez, the car enthusiast, is how people see him.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting that you make mention of, well, I'm an entrepreneur. That's me, right? FDF Race Shop is FDF Race Shop. So that delineation between the two is a cool way to look at it, especially compared to maybe like another major figure in the space.
Yeah, it's really important to distinguish that. The only way to scale a real company, the only way to be a really good leader, is delegating and sharing responsibility and teaching everything that you know. Mr. Beast, Jimmy, he had somebody, the guy that runs all of his stuff actually isn't him. It's a
Mm-hmm.
guy that follows him he followed him for 2 years straight. I think his name's Alex. And he actually runs his company right now. And I just watched him on a podcast. I forgot who he was with, but it was crazy information recently
Yeah.
that he was giving out. He basically told the guy to live with him for 2 years. That means they're cooking eggs together in the morning. That means they're doing
Mhm.
everything. And he said, if you ask me a question and then you go and ask him a question, 99.5% chance that'll be the same answer. That is so important because we're not able to be duplicated, and we have to get away from tribal knowledge. We have to get away from, I know how to do it, so I'm doing it. And that's my reason
Mhm.
for it. You have to go towards, how can I scale this? Because all the ideas that I have, I want to do, and I can't because I'm gridlocked with
Yeah.
everybody needing me to answer all the questions. So going through all these coaching programs, going through all these business, like we're basically changing the process of the business on a monthly basis. We're
Mhm.
upgrading procedures. We're creating things internally. All of this has already been done. Amazon, all these huge
Yeah.
companies, they went through these growing pains 30 years ago or something like that. But going through it on this level means that everything that I can apply in 10 years from now will be so exponentially smooth, and
Yeah.
I'm super excited for it. It's really great to do, and for me to develop my personal self as that is important. To delegate responsibilities, ownerships, roles in the business is very, very important, because I can't just be FTF, and the company is well known because of me, and I am usually the face of the
Yeah.
YouTube channel and the pages and the videos, and I am trying to slowly shine the light on the talent that we have there.
Mhm.
Um, we have 20 employees, but there's some key players that are really, really smart. They deserve a spotlight. They deserve all the things that can come with it. So making that a priority is kind of what I've been doing, and separating. And I think the traffic that I'm getting, we never would have gotten those people if I had maintained just purely, I'm FTF and that's all.
Yeah.
There's so many new people in my DMs that I communicate with. There's so many new customers through my seminars that I'm doing that we never would have been able to reach. So it's important, but you can't. It's got to be like really minimal effort. Like you, that's where you have to do some soul searching. Like it can't be difficult for you to do it. It has to
Yeah.
really flow freely. I know you know that. You're just, the knowledge that you have around the information that you talk about is so easy to elaborate on because you understand it to the core. And that's why I really enjoy listening to you on your videos, because the passion, the understanding, it's like someone could interrupt you and ask anything and you would be able to answer like that. That's how I feel with like CAD and design and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Like there's nothing that could really shake me up in terms of, oh, well, how do you do this? It's like, I don't know right now, but in 3 minutes I will. So just give me a second.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of, I have noticed in the last couple years a significant rise in the use of CAD amongst anybody in the automotive space. Because right when I came into the automotive space back in the early 2010s, um, right, CAD software was CATIA, was SolidWorks, right, but these were enterprise softwares. They were extremely expensive. If you didn't go to school or have a student account or work for a company that owned it, it was hard to get training for. Um, and so I didn't use it personally for a long time. And then seeing the rise and then kind of seeing the things you've done, I was like, all right, fine, I'll download Autodesk Fusion and I'll play around with it. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised one how quickly it's coming back to me because I haven't had to touch CAD in a while because obviously being in tires, I don't use CAD a ton.
mhm.
It's only useful in small contexts, but it's been kind of cool. It's just a general comment that it's just been cool to see the amount of availability in terms of those tools coming back to enthusiasts and people who want to do that stuff. And so it's been nice to see now I think you saw that there's a lot of potential now, especially with that and then the rise in accessibility of 3D scanning, that now there's really a good reason to use it, and not a lot of education there. And so I would lead me sort of to another question, which is obviously your business is based around cars.
Mhm.
And it's, I imagine, been based around cars for some time. But with the Autodesk, uh, you know, move that you're making, is that an attempt to grow in terms of scale because, right, CAD is useful in many contexts outside of just automotive, particularly given that automotive can be a relatively limited segment for growth.
Yeah, I'm definitely not getting out of automotive. I have no desire to change. I think there's no ceiling for creativity with the ability to use CAD in the automotive space because there's so many cars and there's so many cars that enthusiasts want to have and drive. Even if you can't think of it, there's actually an opportunity in making something for cars that aren't used that often because
Hmm.
nobody makes parts for them. So if you're fast, if you have the ability to produce the parts yourself, there is profit to be made.
Yeah.
If you're a huge company and it's only 50 to 100 sales a year for that particular car, it's not going to make any sense. But I was able to bridge that gap early because I was the sales team, the website designer, the CAD designer, the builder. I just did everything. Whereas
Hmm.
the competing companies, the guy had the vision, he hired the engineer, he then hired a marketing guy, he then so there's four for one, and that's the only reason we were able to go from 2013 to building roll cages to incorporated in 18, early 18, and then today where we have a full manufacturing facility, and that's how we were
Yeah.
able to bridge that. And I don't have any desire to not be in cars. I love cars. If I had all the money, I would be doing the same thing anyways. So
Hmm.
people are like, why don't you outsource to China? Just get more engineers on staff, less laborers, send all the drawings away and collect your 50, 70% margin off the top and sell the products and whatever. And I said, okay, let's say that does great and I profit really well. I'd want to do this anyways. So I might as well just try to make it work
Yeah.
with what I'm doing. And the CAD side of things, we have unlimited opportunities. I have two other companies, FDF Industrial, which
Hmm.
you're going to see. We're going to start posting some of the stuff that I make for that. But we're recently finished a project for, I created a tree puller and a T-post puller for the landscaping and construction industry. There was
Okay.
a demand for them. Nobody makes one that works well. And these guys came to me with this concept, and I said, that sucks. I'm going to redo it for you. And when you think of how we've redesigned angle kits and suspension components, way more complicated than simple mechanisms like a lever.
Yeah.
So it was a walk in the park for me. They were ecstatic. They couldn't believe it. We developed the website for them because we had to do that for ourselves. We
Hmm.
actually have so many skills. So we applied it to this. They're placing orders of 100 of these at a time, and I'm actually kind of the model. Like I'm using it, I'm pulling trees out, I'm all over the website. Even though like no maybe people will like that when I post it on social media, maybe they won't. But at the end of the day, this is what you can do with CAD. Like this is it.
Yeah.
You can do anything. And yeah, I mean, meeting the guys and inspiring them. I think there's a small window that we have with CAD before AI infiltrates the automated design. I think you'll be able to type in a prompt and get a pretty decent result in about 2 to 3 years. They got beta versions of it. You can currently do 3D prints of like I can take a picture of like this water bottle, and it's gonna do an AI. It's gonna look at it. It's gonna recognize it. It's gonna look at other things that are the same as it, and then it's gonna give you a model.
Yeah.
Like we're only a couple years away from that. So for me to train and teach people, I have a 2 year window that I can use as an opportunity because a lot of people will tell me, "Aren't you afraid of like your competitors getting your edge?" Short answer, no. Like, not
Yeah.
really. The none of the information that even you and I talk about is secret.
No.
Anyone could read it if they want to. And with AI, it's only going to get easier and easier and easier to be presented to itself. So we might as well seize the opportunity.
Yeah. No, completely agree. And it's funny you mentioned that sort of the difference with, designing an angle kit versus designing a simple mechanical system. Um, I think that's always going to be one of the areas where, for me, automotive will have a need for people, even with AI capabilities growing, because there's just so many little intricacies, um, and such a lack of, let's say, the right answer sometimes, um, that human element I think will remain, but leveraging it as a tool to increase productivity, um, for sure, I can see that happening. I mean, I use it myself, because right, I'm not a coder. I wasn't trained in software coding, but when I'm working on a code set or code base or something where I'm trying to improve it, right, it's a great tool on the side. And I've seen over the last 3 years, it's not like anything it makes I would spit out to the market and say, hey, this is great. But it's the amount that it has improved in the last few years I've seen it has gone from this is absolute garbage to, hey, this is actually a useful tool. So yeah, the market's going to change rapidly. I think you're correct about that, and a lot
Hmm.
of the basic, I'd say, grunt work kind of things, simple function, that's going to get streamlined dramatically, and then it's going to be on us, engineers and creators, to figure out how to like, how do I say, not to modify it, right, but to finesse it into the right space to get to what we know to be maybe the correct answer.
Yeah, the thinking difference with AI is rather than seeking out the correct answer, we're trying to define the correct question.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you've seen iRobot, the movie with Will Smith or not, but
I am old enough for that. Yeah.
yeah, okay, good. How old are you?
34.
We're the same age. So you're
Okay.
92?
90, late 91 into 91.
Okay, I'm a 92. So that movie was interesting today because he kept asking the question and then he said that is not the correct question. And then
Yeah.
at the end of the movie he says that is the correct question. And then he finally like gives him the answer to what he
Hmm.
was looking for. Yeah, that was an old movie. That was like '03 or something.
Yeah.
That's exactly how AI works today. If you don't ask the right questions, you'll get stupid answers, like really
Yeah.
stupid answers. But that bridge, like you're saying, is going to really close in on CAD, on other complex scenarios. And I think you're still going to have to just be very creative. That's why I'm not afraid of giving answers and helping people, because
Hmm.
you can't replicate my ability to seize opportunities and go after certain things and see a vision on how to create something. And if you can, there's nothing that I'm telling you that you wouldn't have been able to find out yourself anyways. So
Right.
it's just such a weird idea. Like the people that help, where their whole page, their whole idea, like Alex Hermosi, their whole business is driven from helping people, knowing that 98% of people aren't helpable. Like
Yeah.
there's not possible. Like what he's telling them to do, they won't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he knows that. And I think that that's unfortunate, but that is the truth. If everyone was to if everyone was to do what I'm doing or what I'm saying or what he's saying or what he's doing, you have to have a consumer heavy market in order to create content. You can't create content if everyone's creating content. Nobody,
No.
because I don't consume content. The only reason I'm on looking is for trending music that match up with reels that I think would flow well with what I do. That's
Hmm.
the only reason I watch reels ever. And I also don't watch TV. I don't play games. I play in CAD. I think that's a game for me. And I do get like dopamine releases from solving problems. And it's a switch that I had to change because I did like playing games. I loved playing COD with my friends and stuff, and that was great. But I just found like you see somebody that has 48 hours played online, and I'm like, man, 48 hours straight into Fusion. You could do a lot of things with that. Like you could
Yeah.
solve, create, you could make, man, I don't know how much money you could make. Like if I had to quantify it, like if I invest X amount of hours into Fusion on a project that I know will work, it could amount to like $1 million over 10 years,
Yeah.
like pretty easily. It's a pretty easily measurable figure. If you're like, if I develop this, like I just look at one chassis, for example, a 350Z.
Hmm.
For this one car, we developed 30 products for it. For this one car, it makes $520,000 a year
Hmm.
based off of those products year over year.
Yeah. And that's
How
one
much
car.
time do I have in the 350Z? A lot of hours, okay,
Yeah.
thousands probably. But you multiply that and extend it over time, and you've got yourself like, an entire job, an entire opportunity. And this is all from doing CAD and design and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I try to preach that to everyone. Sometimes uh, I'll let you give me your thoughts on that. I don't want to just keep talking.
No, you're good. Um, No, I think the part that people have trouble getting through is that period at first when you don't know what you're doing and you're going to spend a lot of hours not seeing a reward from it other than the
100%.
act of growing. Um, so I started the zero camber, let's say shorts, right? Started doing those. I think really seriously, even just 2 a week was like September of last year. Um, and now I think I just crossed like I'm coming in on like 2,800 followers in 4 months of like actual effort. Um, and that's recently when I went from 2 to 3, now up to 4 shorts a week. The time that goes behind that. And it's at first you're doing it and you're getting 2 views, 3 views, maybe 100. You'll do one that gets pretty good. I think my highest one was like a couple 100,000, but that's one. Um, but over time, I looked back on it. It's at first sitting there and, trying to keep the motivation to do it because you're doing a lot without actually seeing something, right? You're not seeing a reward. I'm not seeing a dollar sign. My bank account's not going up. Um, and then it keeps growing and then it keeps snowballing and it gets bigger and bigger. And that part's hard for people because you're going to spend a lot of time just doing stuff without actually seeing it get better. And then it starts to compound. And then you get to a point where, hey, now I can actually do something with this. And that's hard for them to get through.
Hmm.
I think that's kind of looking at the
So
why
I
don't people start it thing. It's because you do spend a lot of time actually not seeing that reward. You have to put in the work at first to get to a point that it's useful.
Yeah, I have a analogy that I created, and we'll see what your opinion is. It's just rated out of 10. If you were given the color of a door and it's your friend's house that you need to find how to get to, all you have is a location. Like you just know approximately where it is. What's the
Mhm.
first thing you're going to do? Well, you're going to drive down each road looking for this red door and roughly what it looks like. The question or what people do is they'll look at the road, they'll look down the road, and they'll kind of just like see if they can see it, and then they'll go on to the next road.
Yeah.
No, you need to go down the road and look at all the houses. And what have you learned if you found nothing on that road? You'll never need to go down that road again.
Mm-hmm.
So you do this process, and it's really important. It's required. You have to do it. If you don't do it, it might have been on the road that you just half assed looking at. And that's kind of how people need to switch, realizing that if nothing results of it, it actually is that is the result.
Yeah.
That's one thing that you don't need to worry about. It doesn't need to occupy any space. And if you do it enough times, you've narrowed down to the last 5% of what you should be focusing on. And you cannot do that if you haven't done the due diligence. So that's what people
Mm-hmm.
struggle with. And I agree with them. It's like it's a lot easier to look at the street and just kind of tell yourself that's I didn't see anything that looked like it.
Yeah.
When in reality, just around the corner, it was right there in front of you the whole time. So I kind of just try to tell people in that way, whether it resonates or not, it's totally up to them.
Yeah. I think people are afraid to just take an action without thinking that it might not result in anything. They don't want to do something and then they're afraid of wasting their time. And I think the point taken away from what you said is it's not a waste of time because you do gain something out of doing it. What you've
Hmm.
gained is the knowledge that it's not there. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. I tell my daughter, "Hey, go look for your toy," and she looks in a room and she goes, "It's not there." And it's like, well, if you walked into your room and looked to your left, it was right there on the shelf, man. You could have found
Yeah.
it if you just walked in there, but now you've spent 10 minutes asking mom and dad you know, where is it? And I'm like, no, just go look for it. You could have had that toy 10 minutes ago if you would have just walked into your room and looked.
Yeah. It's a hard lesson. And then the other thing that it will teach is your limitations and what are they. Most people have no idea what their limitations are for stress, for effort, for output,
Mm-hmm.
for productivity. Like people don't understand what you can actually achieve in an hour and they don't think it's much, but
Oh my god,
it's
it's
a
so
lot.
much.
It's a lot. You can do so much in an hour. I could, if I land the right idea or something, like it could be worth millions in 1 hour. Like you have, and some of the most productive time I have is if I forget or I purposely leave my phone and headphones in the truck while I go to the
Mhm.
gym and work out. I just wish I had a pen and paper
I
so I
know.
could write stuff down. But that's like your brain and your the ability to free think to yourself and talk to yourself is like people don't allow that to happen anymore because there's
Yeah.
always something entertaining us.
Yeah.
Uh, it's crazy. I wish that everyone would just, but then, like I said, you can't have everyone do that, and then the
No.
world would collapse. So it's a tough
Yeah. No.
equation.
It's got to be somebody to sell it to.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
yes. And then if you start helping people, you also you immediately become divided because entertaining is everyone enjoys being entertained, but helping, now you have to base that off of an opinion or a personal experience or a result, and other people are going to have an opposing
Oh yeah.
opinion or result. And now you've established 50% will love you, 50% will hate you, and that's inevitable as well. So at a certain level, you're going to have people that hate you, and that's the other part of the thing that sucks with really putting yourself out there and getting this done and doing the content and everything. There are going to be people that really don't like you. You just have to get over that, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm sure you've, learning the lesson, right? Kind of sometimes you have to just learn the lesson the hard way. I'm sure you've encountered that as a dad. Um, the amount of times you've probably sat back and been like, that's why he did that when you think about how you were raised.
Hmm.
There's going to be those moments where obviously you didn't listen and then later on you experience it yourself and now it's I should have listened earlier, but you never would have got there if you hadn't failed for yourself. So yeah, it's hard helping people because they don't want to listen, but sometimes the only way to learn the lesson is to get hit with it. So
Yeah, I've said to people, um, if you're learning in a college or university setting or any setting that's designed to teach you something, if they had the ability to inject emotions into your body, you would get it. You would understand why this is so important because there are definitely instances in business where 2 weeks straight you're having like cold sweats at night, you can't sleep, all because of the obsession over fixing a problem that you know is of the utmost importance. Like business ending, life altering decisions that you have to create,
mhm,
financial problems. Like people have no idea what these things feel like until you experience it,
yeah,
and then they don't understand the value of doing your due diligence in school,
yeah,
where you're absolutely right. You honestly just have to try it, and
mhm,
it's gonna suck.
yep,
And some people, it will just increase the stress threshold and raise it a lot. Like
yeah,
mine is quite high at this point, and it wasn't always. And then other people are gonna collapse and realize that it's not for them.
yep,
And either way, that's looking for the red door. You
yep,
determine that that road is not for you.
yep,
Totally fine.
absolutely. So actually, it's a question I had, and it's maybe a good segue for it. Um, did you get a formal engineering education?
No, I went to school for manufacturing engineering, which was
Okay.
a 2-year program at Loyalist College. Later on, I got an honorary diploma from them as well for just being successful with graduating with that. But
Mhm.
it's not a degree.
Right.
So we got to do a lot of engineering practices, tons of practical experience. We did walkthroughs of crazy plants. I worked within like P&G, Kellogg's, Stellantis, Deloro Stellite. There's all the and Deloro Stellite's a crazy place. They make the craziest materials ever. They make all the lining that goes inside of the tubes that handles nuclear
Oh,
waste. So
jeez.
every elbow of this tubing has to be coated with stellite. It's a material that just it's not of this earth almost, and it handles like because if you can imagine the corner of a tube with nuclear or radioactive
Yeah.
material is going to just eat right through it,
Yep.
and it has to be able to handle that. So they like put this coating on it. So like I've had so much experience with that stuff, and I just soak it up like a sponge. But I hire engineers
Yeah.
that have their degree, but oftentimes I'll tell you they've never built anything. None of them have ever made anything. And what I've really found with engineers is that they over process things to death, and they need like if we designed things in the way that they would, we would never be profitable. You would never sell anything. You would never do anything because they just on a little bracket that we're going to sell 50 of a year, they'll spend 45 hours on it.
Hmm.
And you're like, you didn't need you didn't need to do all that. Like
No.
it's just that bracket that goes on this one spot, and very clearly stronger than the OEM bracket. Very obvious. Obviously, we do some FEA analysis, which
Hmm.
is pretty easy to set up now. But
Oh yeah.
it's like, okay, given the material, the thickness, the bracket's stronger. It's got 2 holes in it,
Yeah.
but they'll do crazy stuff. So they are fantastic. I typically design everything, and then they are doing the last 20%, which is organization, the assembly guides, the drawings, the weld
Hmm.
parameters, the weld guides. They'll do all of that, and they
Yeah.
do way better than I can because my brain is I can just build things really easily, like
Yeah.
from just the map of how I want to do it. It comes to really easily to me, and to them, it really doesn't. Actually, they're very. I mean, universities like that though. They don't get to expand on the hands-on side of things and creating things. And I was building stuff way before I was designing things. So
Right.
when I got to design things, I was like, oh man, I used to build it this way, but now I can do it this way. Whereas they have only ever started with the design side. So yeah, I went to school for engineering, don't have a degree, hire
Mhm.
people that have degrees, and it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. So I take sort of that would have been my follow up. Would you do it the same way again?
Given all my friends went to Ottawa U and Queen's University, I don't know if you know those two schools. Elon Musk went to Queen's University in Canada,
Okay.
surprisingly, but he was there. And like Queen's is a very well known university around the world. It's one of our highest end schools, and it's 45 minutes from me. I went to college, which was in my town, and I wouldn't do it differently because I know my friends that went there
Hmm.
have, like, I talked to them and they're just like, we're not doing what you're doing because we wouldn't know how to do it. And they even
Right.
went to school for business. And I said, business isn't going to teach you anything. You have to sell to the world, learn your niche, obsess. And it's not something that really can be taught, especially by, I'm really going to try not to like shit on professors or anything. But what I found with anything government or anything school board related, you have, uh, you have a community where I feel that the amount of work that you're capable of doing is not recognized. And I'm trying to think of how I mean to say that. Professors don't know how the real world works, especially if they've
No.
been one for 15 to 20 years. Uh, and what they're teaching you, they actually don't have 20 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience 20 times. And that to me is 100%. I said, you could be a 21-year-old guy, an apprentice somewhere, and you'll be better off than a professor. I hate to say it, but if we take apprentices all the time in machining, and then I taught the machining course for 2 years at the college. This apprentice would run circles around my 2 year students, like like nobody's business. Like
Yeah.
you can't match it. You do something for 40 hours a day, or you do something for like, or not 40 hours a week, sorry, or you do it for like 8 hours a week with structured course material where you have to learn with 30 other people and you can't individually get any real experience. You're screwed.
Yeah.
You could be an apprentice for 2 weeks and you'll be as good as a 2 year student. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's right because for me, I as part of my current job, like I am a representative to basically a college, a university associated, I guess in your terminology, research group, basically. And so, right, I interact with through social media people like you, other builders, and then on the other side of it, right, I'm interacting with, uh, you know, PhD college professors, PhD students working on their thesis, going through these projects that they're doing for the industry, and it's two totally different problems. If I wanted somebody to solve, or let's say add an additional percent accuracy that would give you the edge in Formula One to a race car, yeah, absolutely, I'd hire the PhD student, or I'd get the PhD because they know how to get into those absolute minuscule details that might push us 1% further. That guy though is not going to get. He's never going to get a product to market on his own because or they almost never will, because they don't have nose to tail execution experience that, somebody who started off as a machinist, somebody who started off in any kind of manufacturing setting would. uh, because I mean, right, if you put me in a machine shop right now and told me to make something I've designed, there's absolutely no fucking way I could do it. I know that because I'm not a machinist, right? I an engineer. I've worked in big, massive process oriented corporations most of my time. And I've recognized that I have that limitation myself because I don't have that background, and so it's two totally different worlds. And it's sometimes a shame that we think just pushing it 1% further is like the pinnacle of what really we should be hoping for, and not like, hey, let's get something out there and try it and get feedback and sell it and figure it out through iteration, and not just through thinking about it for a really long time.
Yeah, I think that we have such a vast understanding of practical experience, and then PhDs and degrees have such a vast experience of the numbers and processing things to perfection, that you'll find in the real world the blend never works out. It's an equal balance of both is
Mm-hmm.
required. And in the most advanced sectors like rockets, for example, how long have they been trying to launch the NASA rocket, and they'd have a leak here and they have a thing
Yeah.
that doesn't work there, and it's like they delayed it again. Guys, the practical experience is very important,
Yes.
and so is the data. And I really enjoy working with guys that push me on the organization and data side, and then I can push them into making them realize what's actually possible. Like I could tell them right away what they're working on. I can just look at their screen and you can't do that. Like it's not going to work. And they'll be like, "Oh, well, why not?" And I just tell them like this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Especially when you're dealing with like laser, water jet, plasma,
Mm-hmm.
whatever kind of metal cutting options you're choosing. Material thickness variances, the kerf tolerances, the kerf is never cut straight either. It's very
Mm-hmm.
close, but
Never. Yeah.
and that you got to account for all these things, and then understand that the fixture is more important than the alignment of the parts. So like if they design something that fits perfectly on a computer, uh, you're still going to need a jig in real life, because
Yeah.
it's just the welds are going to pull. This is going to happen. You got to just bolt it down. And they don't like a weld will pull like crazy if you weld it, if you don't weld it properly. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're talking 2-3 mil on a plate that's like
Which is a lot.
six. Oh, like you have to resurface the whole part and fix it.
Yeah.
So that's not in the computer.
No.
You didn't, was the plate curved in the computer? It's like,
Right.
and then machining sides of things, it's if you need a certain finish on a part, um, depending on the material, it's either possible or impossible. Aluminum's very difficult to get super high tolerances because it's a spring material on the cutter side. So if you try to take like 1 thou off on a lathe, it'll actually take 0 off. It'll just kind of mush into it and rub against it.
Okay.
So, but on stainless, like 17.4 or chromoly, like you can get a 1 thou pass and it's just like butter and it's beautiful. So if you're trying to nail a tolerance, aluminum's kind of tricky. It's a little
Yeah.
mushy, it's a little soft. So again, in the computer,
No, you
nobody's
never
telling you
understand.
that.
Yeah.
But that's the real world. So when you deal with especially with the alloy materials like the titanium stuff that's going on now, I see guys trying to use them in high stress applications, and it sounds great, looks great on paper, yet they fail in reality. And I
Mm-hmm.
won't use titanium as like a stud or fastener because it seems great, it's super light, 40% lighter with the same strength as like a high strength alloy steel, but the cycle rates and the fatigue and all of that just doesn't work in reality. I know they use it on planes for landing gears, but they have $1 billion budget to make sure that thing
Yeah.
works, and your guys didn't do that. You just picked a material that you thought was cool. There's like 18 different types of titanium.
Yeah.
TC4 is like the most common, and it says on McMaster Carr that it's structural, but that doesn't mean that the cycle times are going to hold up after 1,000 cycles at 70% duty cycle or whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great blend. It's a very enjoyable thing to go back and forth with somebody like that. and I love being challenged. Like even your videos are challenging me with getting more understanding. Now drifting's weird because we just use everyone has to use the same tire, so it's like
Right.
how much can you does knowing about the compound help you? Well, you can't change it, so it's not
No.
like
Yeah, tires. I occasionally I get annoyed with myself for getting into tires as a career, because the actual amount of practical knowledge that I can take out of that and let's say take it to the aftermarket and do something with is basically nothing, because tires operate. It's the same as like you said with aerospace. Um, you can't take some dude off the street and just manufacture a tire, right? There's billions of dollar in capital that are necessary to even manufacture one.
Mhm.
And if you can manufacture it, can you manufacture it well? And then all the chemistry that goes into it, all the material supply chain, the design of it itself, and then making something 1% better, 2% better is, sure, you can do that. And then you're going to eat it. Even the best engineer could do it. And then you're going to eat it up and not being able to make the damn thing. And so for me, because I got into engineering right out of high school, I went for my degree, and then I spent 3.5 years thinking I hated engineering because it was just, here's a bunch of numbers, here's a bunch of theory. There was no application of it until finally I got to vehicle dynamics. I took a course on vehicle dynamics. I was like, oh, actually, this is cool. I like this side of this. Um, and then proceeded to slowly try to learn it. Bad Investment Builds, right? Him and I, John Cotton, the guy that runs that account, him and I go back to when we both worked at Chrysler together, when it was Fiat Chrysler, and we were both in vehicle dynamics. He'd been doing it a while. I did it for a shorter period of time. Um, I know I said I was going to tell this story, but we're also don't have a ton of time. But the time that I almost rolled myself off a mountain with him, um, taking renegades up a mountain pass, and that just uh, I missed a drop and about rolled the renegade off the mountain, so that was good. But
You
yeah, him
rolled
and
it,
I.
but not off the mountain.
No, I didn't roll it. So I was my front left wheel. I missed that there was a drop, and so I was crawling down. And obviously, like a Jeep Renegade is not a lot of articulation. They're fairly capable. There's not a lot of articulation there. So when that tire dropped, I, not being an experienced off-roader, I immediately hit the brakes and I pitched the car forward and it went up. And he said he was sitting back there and he's just thinking, he's like, shit, I killed the new guy. um, and I like, thankfully I let my foot off the brake pretty quickly and I just let it kind of drop down so that it didn't continue its forward pitch. But we both were there at the same time, and he taught me a lot. He stayed in vehicle dynamics. I went back to Ford and did tires, and that's how I kind of got into that space. And I've learned a ton, and I've figured out how to apply it. But the biggest thing for me with it is I like vehicle dynamics and I like tires, and so it's a mindset around how you approach vehicle dynamics when you think about it as a tire engineer. Uh, my experience is most people think of, what damper setting do I need? What springs do I need? How am I going to affect my kinematics? But they're thinking about it as what is the vehicle doing? And they're not thinking about it in the reciprocal way that it actually is, which is how is the vehicle affecting what the tire is seeing? And how is the tire affecting then back into the vehicle? So, like there's a lot of simplifications that have to happen in tires because of how complicated they are. But the very basic thing to sort of think with a passenger car tire is they change their forces based on five things: the vertical load, the longitudinal slip, which is right going to be related to your braking and your accelerating, your lateral slip, which is going to be related to your steering wheel angle, and then how your suspension geometry is inducing wheel wheel angle, um, the camber angle, and then technically the people approach it differently. I like Massimo Gigiani. He's a Italian professor that has a really good high level vehicle dynamics book. He likes to break it down into those four, and then spin slip, which is approached differently for like a passenger car or race tire as opposed to say a motorcycle tire. For a passenger car tire, it's generally true basically to say that that is then re-related to camber. Um, so really, all of that to say that if you're designing a vehicle and you're wanting it to do something, you have to be thinking about how is this going to affect the amount of load the tire will see? How is this going to affect the amount of wheel turn the tire will see, whether that's through the direct wheel turning or the kinematics? And how is this going to affect the amount of camber the tire will see? And if you can think about it in those 5 ways, or those 3 ways, then you can consider whether it's going to be doing what you want it to or not, as long as you can comprehend what a tire will tend to do. So if you load a tire, right, tires have an optimal amount of force, let's say turning force generation, based on the amount of slip. So, right, tire curves go up and then they'll come back down. So, if you're looking for the most amount of grip, you need to be thinking about making sure that you are hitting that optimal slip angle in the turn, which is usually, let's say, 5 to 8 degrees. And then having some small amount of negative camber is really good for getting the maximal amount of grip. And so if you want more lateral force, you need to be designing, again, the kinematics to make sure that it's staying in negative camber. And then the same with load. Tires have a non-linear relationship with how they generate more load. So the gradient goes up by less. If you add, say, go from 1,000 to 2,000 newtons on a tire, it generates less additional lateral force than if you took 1,000 off. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing I try to impart with the videos and how I approach it is you have to think about what the vehicle is doing to the tire. And if you understand that, then you can start thinking about what you're actually going to do to the way the vehicle handles.
Yeah, it's very situational when people, like, we get emails all the time about how do I get more grip. First question, what tires are you running? Yeah. Obviously. But also they ask for alignment specs a lot. With front, we specify the alignment specs for the front, but for the rear, ever changing. I change this 2 or 3 times during practice. Then obviously after practice is over, I don't touch it. But you're constantly looking at the tire and seeing how it's behaving. And I tell people, why are you so obsessed with suspension? Look at the vehicles that use suspension, trophy trucks, and then look at the terrain that they drive on.
Yes.
Is the terrain that you're driving on like a trophy truck? Yes or no? No? Then look more at vehicles at high level that are competing on a similar track surface that are optimizing the tire, and how much suspension do they have? If you look at an F1 car, we're talking barely anything.
Yes.
So is it important? Yes. Is it as important as the tire? No. If I wanted to win a drift competition and I had to use a car that had no developed suspension, or I had to use a tire that was like not very good, I would choose the car with no developed suspension if I could have unlimited tire. And I'd probably win because I give tires. I was generous during one of my YouTube videos a couple of years ago, and I said that it was 60% of all things accounted for in grip performance related to drifting. Mm-hmm. I said 60% of it. So bad tire, you're down 60%.
Yeah.
I said the maximum you can achieve otherwise with all the best products is only 40. So I said maximize the tire and the rest will just fall in line, and you could have the worst suspension ever and still beat everyone in terms of that. And I had a whole spreadsheet. I offered the spreadsheet for free to people. It's still on YouTube somewhere from a couple of years ago. But people don't get it. And that's in my industry, road racing and endurance racing. Like, if you don't have a Hankook RS4 in endurance, you're screwed. You're going to lose. Simple as that. Yeah. No tire can handle 8 hours per stint 3 times over without being changed in endurance racing. It's the Hankook RS4. No other tire can do it. People try other tires and then they have to do a tire change. And because it's not, now the RS4 isn't the best tire, there are guys doing better lap times, but one tire change that takes you 4 minutes, you might
Are
as well
you
have just
really
done 2
4 minutes
seconds slower
faster?
per lap. You
Yeah.
might as well. And not to mention better on the car, better on the brakes, less fuel. Like,
Yes.
so every single car there is running that tire, and if you're not, you'll literally get laughed at
Yeah.
because you're an idiot. Whereas in other forms of racing and drifting especially, they have no idea. They're running the worst tires ever, they suck. They're no good. I'm not going to say the brands because I don't want to get people all upset, but it's extremely obvious, and then they ask all the wrong questions. So at the end of the day, the information's available. Guys like you are online, guys like me are online, and they still will spend 4 grand on a rear grip kit from some other company. And I'll even tell people, like, I sell grip kits for drifting, and all it does is optimize the camber curve. It corrects roll center, and it allows for a toe adjustment. We call it toe gain, dynamic toe, bump steer, whatever you want to call it. It allows us to manipulate the toe curve, and that's it. You can also change the anti-squat depending on the chassis. Now, some chassis are easy to set that up, some are difficult. So in drifting, it's weird because the anti-squat is only ever working under acceleration. You have to have load transfer, weight
Yes.
transfer in order to actually have an anti-property fighting that load transfer, weight transfer. So in drifting, we're only accelerating like at the beginning. And then for the rest of it, you're not really accelerating. You're actually limiting the speed of the car with your foot brake or with angle.
Right.
And what that does is it binds the suspension against your front tires, and it kind of creates a sandwich between the rear tires trying to drive the car and the front tires either slowing it by angle or slowing it by braking.
Hmm.
And what that does is it locks out the damper. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, you have your anti squat jacked up, and your damper is now not able to work because you can imagine that. I know, like,
Yeah.
some people can, some people can't,
I
but
can imagine what you're. Yeah.
and now you've locked out the damper. Now you're hitting bumps and you're skipping over top of them, and you just completely screwed yourself. They ask me how I do so well at New Jersey, which is a very bumpy track. I win. I don't know. I've done it 7 times and I've won 5 times. And they're like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "I take all the anti squat out of the car because it's so bumpy." I'm
You.
like, "You can't. I have to let the damper work, and you guys are locking it out with all of your grip kits and stuff."
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
an interesting field that has very little understanding by only a few. And guys like you and John would really be able to just like walk people because it's like a new baby in terms of racing and understanding.
Yeah.
There's nothing that no one is actually knowing. And then road racing, this has been 100 years of development plus.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
very well understood. If you don't have the right tire, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
That's what they'll say.
Those guys are on a different level. Like when you get to the more established forms of racing, I feel very, very stupid when I talk to those people because the amount of things that they know. My actually a former boss of mine is let's say a higher level managing engineer over at GM Motorsport. And every time I talk to her, I'm like, I'm a little baby in terms of what I know compared to her. And that's something, I know we're kind of running out of time, but that's something that's interesting. You mentioned in terms of like people, what they know and what they can share. There is a massive, I think, understated gap in terms of what people like, what the layman knows, let's say an average car enthusiast knows, what an absolute expert knows, to such a degree that people don't even realize. Maybe with some of the things I post, like I'm not posting and telling you guys stuff that's up here. I can't compete with those people. But there is so much of a lack of knowledge in a lot of the publicly available spaces. And that's what I saw when I started making the videos, was like challenging myself with, I don't feel like I'm really adding anything to the conversation because, well, this is stuff that like the people I interact with on a daily basis would consider rudimentary, but it's not being discussed, and that's like
Mm-hmm.
you said with the drift related items. Like that's why I like seeing your stuff. I like listening to Denofa talk too, because he seems to be a real nerd about it.
He's
So I like,
extreme. He's extreme on the practical
yeah,
extreme because he's done it for 17 or 20 years.
yeah,
So his understanding and terminology is almost nowhere to be found. I shouldn't say that, but he has so much
Mhm.
experience with actually winning, actually driving, actually using the tire that he almost doesn't need to know because he
Yeah.
knows drifters are unique. They know so much about the tire and how it behaves and at what temperatures. And we know wheel speeds and
Yep.
delam and slip. And we know all of these things. We're on the edge all the time,
Yes.
but we just don't know what you know, which is how to quantify that.
Yeah.
And if you could put what we know on paper in your form, there would be a serious edge to be gained in terms of understanding. And we know what tires are the best because we just use them a bunch,
Yeah.
test them to the maximum limit, and then hundreds of other people are doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we arrive at what we all can agree is, and there's actually a tire rating page on Facebook where they rate them based on like four categories,
I might
and
have
they give
seen
them a rating out of 10 for each one. And it's like duration, smoke, grip,
Okay, yeah,
all
I have
kinds of
seen.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, we know a lot, but just not the right terms. And it's
I like
fun.
that though. I like that though because there's such a gap between like hyper specific engineering terminology and then like what a person's actually going to remember, what's intuitive for them to speak to. And that's been something I try to balance with what I'm doing is getting the space between being very specific, being very accurate, but also something that people are going to be able to easily access because I know they're not going to spend the amount of time or the amount of energy that I have. Really comprehending all the correct technical approaches. Um, and I think
Hmm.
that's what I like. That is one of the things I like about Drift as a community is that it's such a good mix of intuitive approaches and wanting to, I guess, how do I say, wanting to get to the right answer.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I think that starting in this sector, especially with the suspension design, because it is unique, you need to reverse engineer it, but to a level that is nothing like it was originally.
Yeah.
And that challenges your thinking. And that has allowed me to then create something for road racing or drag and it be ridiculously simple.
I saw you
Uh,
did a drag
yeah,
for what was that? The CTSV recently?
it's Corvette rear lowers. No one
Okay.
made one that
That's
fits
right.
a 15-inch wheel, which I've shocked. It's a very like people drag race Corvettes all the time,
Hmm.
and they just grind the lower like crazy to get it to fit. I'm like, someone's got to make an arm for this. So we sold a bunch right off the bat, just based off of like the videos and the stuff that I was posting, and it's really great because those two, road racing and drag, you can sell things for more because the appreciation for the quality is there. Whereas in drifting, it's so saturated. I think the
Yeah.
market cap, we calculated it roughly, is like 40 million for suspension. There's like 9 companies, they all share a piece of the pie. And if you do gain sales, it's because you stole them from another
Right.
company. Whereas in drag and road race, there's like no market cap. It's huge. It's
Hmm.
massive. It's in the hundreds of millions for road racing and stuff. So the people just if it results in lap time reduction or like your quarter mile or your
Yeah.
60 foot to be shorter, they'll just pay whatever,
Yeah.
and that's it. Whereas drifting, there's no quantifiable value that determines if you win or not. It's mostly the driver, to be honest,
Yeah.
and that's another thing that makes it so great. Uh, is the fact that you can be so creative, you can try new things, and it might just work.
Yes.
Especially with the conditions changing. When the track gets rubber laid down,
Hmm.
your first practice session is now different than your second
Right.
practice session. Whereas in road racing, you're actually able to just land the apex harder and harder and harder because of the amount of rubber that everyone's taking the same line.
Hmm.
And the rubber doesn't really get laid down like it does in
Not
drifting.
the
Like
same
the
way.
rubber fills in the voids of the track and it becomes like sticky glue.
Hmm.
And then if it rains, it's the opposite. It is so bad if it rains at all. And then if the sun's up versus the sun's down,
Hmm.
like this is all tires. Like you would
Yes.
probably just go nuts with your stuff on track temp versus the tire temp. And I do have tire temperature sensors on, but after like 3 runs, the rubber covers the sensor. So
Yes.
it's like I can't really use it. I can use it in my burnout box, and that's pretty much all I have. And
Yeah.
once it reads like 65, 70 Celsius, it really, you can feel the
Oh yeah.
difference in the tire. And then once it goes beyond that, you're at the right optimal temperature. But
Yep.
you line up to the line. If you didn't do the warm up, you would just burn out off the line and it would suck. So it's a
Yeah.
cool sport. It's a cool
It is fun.
sport. It's creative. We get to show who we are with our style and all this other stuff. That's why I really like it. But
Yeah.
as far as motorsports, they got a lot of work to do in terms of figuring out how to quantify who wins. That they
Yeah.
still struggle with that.
Yeah. It's I have a friend who doesn't care for drift pretty much exclusively because there's not
Don't blame them
a
for a second.
clear win, right? It's subjective. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I get that as probably somebody who wants to watch motorsport. I like looking at it as a, okay, but what's the actually correct answer? Because there isn't one. It's
There's lots there, and if you're a good driver and good at drifting, it translates so well to racing, man. Like we show up to these tracks, and my brother and I, it rains even slightly. Every race car driver is out, like they don't know what to do.
yeah,
We're just power sliding at a 4-degree angle every corner,
yeah,
fully comfortable, totally capable, running 8 seconds less lap times in the rain than everybody else in the rain. And when it gets too dry, it's the same thing. Like we're
yeah.
able to just find the limit. We actually overwork the cars usually,
I
and
can
we're
imagine.
overworking the tires. And we have to, like, we always get on the headset. They're like, you got to stop overworking the tire. Like, yeah, you're doing 2 seconds less per lap, but we can't last for
Yeah,
four
you're not
hours
gonna be able to
stints.
keep that up, man.
Yeah, we'll have to do this podcast again.
Yeah, for
I
sure. I know you got a
really
meeting
enjoy
to run
talking to
to,
you. So,
so yeah, we'll do it again. Thanks for coming on, and I
yeah, all right.
appreciate
I
the
got a
time.
meeting to get to.
Yep,
So, see you on Instagram
yep.
probably.
See ya.
Later.